die from vaccine. If you all get the vaccine, later anything happens, don't blame me, I tell you.
You come see. They say the Pfizer efficacy 95%. Other vaccine you see, you less than 95%. You see how? Is it mean that Pfizer is the best?
Hey Rosie, you see? This meat so tasty, want to eat.
Aiyo, but I see you eat every meat. Oh, you sure not?
I pay so much, of course I have to eat one lah.
Aiyo, you better lah you. Hey, Mimi ah? Is it Mimi? I love me. Aiyo, wait first, sanitize first, okay? Aiyo, got COVID enough one. Aiyo, need to have 1 liter. You.
1 liter is like that one lah. Like this one don't know.
Mimi Jenny, I tell you all. Recently, I'm very confused, you know. Not everybody talk about the COVID vaccine, this, that. I also don't know whether to go register or not. How about you all? Are you losing? Of course, need lah. Just a few steps only. Right? I show you. This list.
买啦 This vaccine so new. Later got side effects and how?
Yeah, I'm very scared of the side effects. How? Aiyo, government say we need a large population to be vaccinated. Only we can herd immunity ma. And we can fight this disease.
Think so easy one meh? Many people won't go vaccinate one lah. You want people to risk their lives meh?
Yeah. You are right also leh. So I'm very confused. So how?
I believe the above conversation is very familiar to many of us because nowadays wherever we go we can hear about conversations of vaccines, whether or not it is safe, what are the side effects of vaccinations. So our government has told us a good news, which is the phase 2 of vaccination will be starting very soon on April 19. However, the registration rate still remain very low in the country. So what Aunty Jenny said about the vaccine is actually true. She mentioned that it's so quickly developed. In fact, it is so quickly developed that it is the fastest vaccination being developed in history. Less than a year. Previously, it will take up to 5 years, some even up to 10 to 15 years to develop a vaccine. But this time we did it in less than 1 year. How did we even do that? So first thing first, we have to understand that because COVID-19 is a global emergency and the development of COVID-19 vaccine is of global effort and it's driven by billions of dollars. So we have enough financial aids to purchase all the resources needed to fasten the process. Secondly, also because it is a global emergency, some of the phases of developing the vaccine will overlap and done simultaneously. So what are the phases of developing a vaccine? Firstly, it will go through a discovery and development phase. Secondly, it will go through a preclinical phase where laboratory research are done on non-human beings. Thirdly, it will go through a clinical phase where scientists look for what are the side effects, what are the dosage and what are the efficacy of the vaccine. So actually this is the most important phase and it is separated into phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3. So previously the clinical trials are done after one another, meaning from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. However, this time we can wait no more, so the clinical trials are done simultaneously. Fourthly, it will go through the manufacturing phase, and fifth, it will be approved by authorities. And in Malaysia, it is approved by the NPRA, which is the National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency. Sixth, it will be distributed to the people. So even after the vaccine is marketed, it will go through what we call the post-licensure clinical trials to continue to monitor the side effect closely. So all these phases are not missed and skipped this time as well, just like any other vaccinations. Some people may argue that the COVID-19 vaccine is the first vaccine to be developed under the basis of mRNA. However, although this is the first time we used mRNA in a vaccine, but the technology is not unknown, and in fact, many researchers have been working with mRNA for decades.
Aiyo, all this also I know lah. But you see this Facebook say you get infected after inject the vaccine.
Yeah lor, I also saw on Facebook.
Aiyo, all those are fake news. You didn't update yourself from the government website, meh? The COVID-19 there.
So clever, you explain lah.
Come explain.
So to understand or not the vaccine can directly cause the infection, we have to first look at what are the types of vaccinations available. So we know that our Malaysian government has brought in 5 brands of vaccines. And among the 5 brands, there are 3 types of vaccines. So the first type is mRNA. So mRNA has the blueprint or the recipe to encode the spike protein which are found on the surface of the virus. And the second type is viral vector. So this viral vector vaccine actually contains a harmless virus being injected to the body, and this harmless virus act like a transportation for the DNA to be transported into the body, and this DNA will then be transcribed into mRNA, and this mRNA will then produce the spike protein. The last type of vaccination, which is the inactivated vaccine, has a dead particle of the virus. And these 3 types of vaccine will teach our body to build immunity against the infection, where we will build the antibodies against the spike protein, and when we are really infected by the COVID-19, we will have immunity against it. So all these 3 types do not contain a live component of COVID-19 virus, and thus it cannot directly cause infection to us. And after we have developed full immunity towards the infection, our body will have only positive antibody tests but not positive antigen tests, unless you are naturally infected by the infection. Bear in mind that we were actually talking about if the vaccines can directly infect us. As for natural infection after vaccinations, it is possible and there has been reported cases as well. However, they had less severe symptoms. Because the vaccines can prevent us from severe symptoms of COVID-19, and we'll discuss it later in the video. So it is still very important for us to take precautions like wearing a mask and maintaining a social distance even after vaccinations. Some people also raise the question of whether or not mRNA will alter our DNA. However, what we all know is that mRNA will only be at the cytoplasm and will not enter the nucleus where our DNA are kept, and it is so fragile that it will be degraded after 72 hours. So all the mRNA vaccines are coated with fatty layers so that it will not be degraded by our own enzymes. So this will raise another question, which is whether or not the DNA from viral vector can alter our DNA, since the DNA will enter the nucleus. However, the answer is no. According to rigorous studies, and it is proven by the CDC that the viral vector vaccine does not cause alteration of our DNA as well.
Wait. I have a question. You know my uncle, this is 12 years old only. Can she get vaccinated or not?
I don't know eh. Aiyo, my daughter also got pregnant. She can get or not?
I don't know Hey Jenny, your husband... Sorry, I forgot you're still single.
So how who can get vaccinated?
We all know that the WHO approved vaccines are not eligible for children under 18 years old, and some vaccines under 16 years old. This is because we do not include them in the initial clinical trial, and now we do not have clinical data to prove that it is safe among this age group of people. Secondly, as for pregnant mothers, we also do not know whether or not it is safe among these pregnant mothers because we do not include them in the clinical trial as well. However, Researchers have said that it should not cause any harm to the mother as well as the fetus because it does not contain any live component of vaccine. However, if you are pregnant and you wish to be vaccinated or you do not know if you should get the vaccination, you should consult your doctor to see if you are eligible and whether or not the vaccination's benefits outweigh the risk. And thirdly, if you have history of severe allergic reaction to any drug or vaccination, you should not get this vaccine. However, those who are having comorbidities such as hypertension, diabetes mellitus, heart diseases or lung diseases like asthma, you are eligible for this vaccine. However, if you have any allergic history or any other diseases, you do not know that whether or not you are eligible for this vaccine, you should consult your doctor as well.
If you all get the vaccine, later anything happens, don't blame me, I tell you.
Hey, Jenny, Mimi, tell you come see. You know, I get from the government website. They say this Pfizer vaccine, the efficacy 90.
What Pfizer? It's Pfizer!
Pfizer.
What Pfizer?
Whatever, that one, not the point lah. You come see. They say the Pfizer, efficacy 95%. Other vaccine, you see, you less than 95%. You see how? Is it mean that Pfizer is the best?
I heard my friend Pfizer is the best lah.
See, you sure won't get Pfizer vaccine, should get the lousy one.
Aiyo, then how? If I don't get Pfizer, then does it mean the other vaccine are lousy?
Many people will conclude right away that Pfizer is the best vaccines out of all the vaccines because of the efficacy rates they see. However, efficacy rates tell us what happened in the clinical trials and do not necessarily reflect what will happen in the real world. Efficacy rates tell us how many people are infected in the clinical trials against the placebo group. Therefore, we would say efficacy instead of effectiveness because effectiveness measures the effect in the real world. We cannot actually compare them head to head because all the circumstances of the clinical trials are very different. They are done at different places, different time, on different people. So it is unfair for us to compare them side by side. For an example, a vaccine that has an earlier clinical trial naturally will have an advantage on the efficacy rate because the infection rate of COVID-19 were lower at that time. For example, a clinical trial that were done in December 2020 will have a disadvantage as compared to the one that are done in August 2020. Besides that, we all also know that the clinical trials that are done later were exposed to many other variants of COVID-19 and therefore it affects the efficacy rates as well. So all this being said, the efficacy rates are not the most important thing to look at ultimately. And the good news is all these vaccines prevent us from severe manifestation of COVID-19 as well as help us to reduce the likelihood of hospitalization due to COVID-19 as well as reduce the death rate, which is ultimately the most important goal of a vaccine.
You see this vast of many news, many people die from vaccine.
Yeah, lor. I also saw if anything happen, we die already. How?
Aiyo, so is it die one man? You see most of our frontliners also got vaccinated already. They also take risks to vaccinate. So we should do our part, ma.
Yeah, lor. You are right.
All this being said, we are not saying that vaccines are 100% safe without any risk. Actually, we all know that all medical interventions has its benefits as well as its risks. We also acknowledge that the EMA finds possible link to very rare cases of unusual blood clots to the AstraZeneca. In this critical time, we wish everybody could understand more about vaccines and also read up before choosing to take or not to take the vaccines. Remember, only depend on reliable sources and do not spread fake news.